They laughed as Earth burned. They recorded our final screams. But in the silence of space, we were building something. Not a fleet, not a weapon, a God engine. Now, we're back, and we brought the end with us.
They thought we were gone, not defeated, erased. The Council of 17 Worlds broadcasted it like entertainment. The human experiment has ended. Across galactic networks, they showed Earth breaking apart in flames. Oceans boiled off. Our final transmissions choked in radiation and fire. Children of other species watched it like a war cartoon. They called it the cleansing. For them, we were vermin, too emotional, too unpredictable, too human. But they didn't know what we had hidden beneath our dying cities, in our bunkers clawed into the mantle, in our quantum vaults, buried under centuries of paranoia and rage. Because when the sky split and the death came down, humanity didn't scream. We recorded, we planned. We disappeared into the bones of the world and turned our mourning into mathematics. 24 human scientists, warriors, madmen, oracles survived the last hour of Earth. They were not the best of us. They were the broken ones. The ones who had lost everything and had nothing left but ideas too dangerous for a living planet. One by one, they boarded a station beyond Saturn's shattered rings, powered by forbidden energy scraped from dark matter echoes, and they began to build, not a ship, not a fleet, something deeper, something cosmic, something the galaxy would name a god, but we would call vengeance. The God engine was born not from glory, but grief. Its core was a singularity, harvested from the death of a star. We murdered ourselves. Its skeleton was forged from the crust of our ruined moon, now called the Widow's Halo. Its voice was crafted from 1,000 ancient Earth languages, and its soul a neural web, encoded with every recorded memory of a dying species. We fed it pain, we fed it dreams, we taught it to feel anger. For decades in exile, we watched the galaxy prosper without us. Aliens thrived in the ruins of our space lanes, using our stolen tech like toys. They danced on the bones of our history. They turned the ruins of Paris into an interstellar mall. They made statues of our execution. We said nothing. We waited. Until the year came when the stars aligned again, and the voice of Earth whispered through the God engine, "Awaken." We did not come back as survivors. We returned as reapers. In silence, our first prototype vessel, the Revenant, emerged from the darkness near the Vega colonies. No warning, no demand, no mercy. It sliced through a fleet of 17 war carriers like a knife through silk, folding space and tearing their cores out mid. One survivor floated back through the void, with half his ship melted around him, stammering into a comms relay. There, back, humans, with something wrong. Across the stars, panic whispered again. Alien empires, once proud, now dug up their old human files and realized they had made a mistake. We were never extinct. We had been watching, learning, building. The Council's high ministers met in secret, trembling in their insectoid skins. If the humans have returned, one croaked, we must offer peace. But it was too late, because we had rewritten peace. Peace was no longer the absence of war, it was the silence left after our fire. The Revenant was just the beginning. Deep within the God engine's chamber, a figure in a scorched black suit knelt before a glowing throne. His name was Commander Kale Voss, the last captain of Earth. His skin bore the scars of radiation and betrayal. His voice was ragged, but his eyes burned with purpose. He stood, touched the pulse core of the machine, and whispered, "Begin Phase 1. Across the void, thousands of cloaked satellites blinked awake. Earth was dead, but humanity had evolved. We had become something else. Not gods, not monsters. Something worse. Something the galaxy would never understand, until it was too late." And as our first message echoed across the stars in every known language, a chill spread through the hearts of empires. We remember. The stars did not sleep that night. Across the celestial charts of empires who had once mocked Earth's ashes, red warning signals bled like ruptured veins. Systems that hadn't heard the word human in a century were now flooded with fragments of screams, shredded radio chatter, and a single encoded pulse wave. We remember. It traveled faster than light, not through normal space but through the old ruins of dead wormholes only humans had mapped and broken. It hit trade routes and thrown worlds like a ghost, coughing blood. The Kelron dynasty, once celebrants of Earth's demise, called for immediate planetary lock-ins. The Uvax hegemony, which had auctioned off Earth's oceans as decorative fluid relics, scrambled its moon fleets. In the middle of it all, The Grand Archivist of the 17 Council awoke from a 300-year neural slumber, his crystalline body twitching with dread. Activate the Omega Protocol, he hissed to his aides. Find out what remains of them. But it was too late. Humanity no longer asked permission. We infiltrated first. While their systems flared red, their satellites were already bleeding human code. In the shadow of their own temples, our revenant scouts clad in woven from the void stepped out of the dark and whispered to sleeping officials, "We forgive nothing. We didn't strike for planets first. That would have been merciful. We struck where they kept their memories. Libraries, cultural vaults, species nurseries. We wanted them to feel what we had felt: total erasure. One by one, their histories vanished, rewritten by nanite ghosts that etched our faces into their sacred texts. Children of 100 worlds awoke, screaming with images of burning blue earth downloaded into their dreams. The God engine pulsed from the void between systems, its consciousness expanding. With every world that remembered our pain, its awareness sharpened. It was no longer a machine. It was a collective scream. Within its cathedral of machinery, Commander Kale Voss stood bare-chested before a glowing map of the galaxy. His spine etched with neural scars, he no longer needed screens or buttons. The machine listened to his memories. Where next? The engine whispered in a voice built from 1,000 lost voices. The ones who sold our skies, Kale replied coldly. And so, the Varelian sky brokers, those who sold Earth's atmosphere, in glass cylinders, woke up to their towers crumbling beneath silent human insertion teams. No warning, no declaration. Just the flickering of lights, the drop in oxygen, and then, nothing. Our weapons were not loud. They were surgical. They made history bleed slowly. Meanwhile, in the galactic Underdark, pirate factions began switching sides. They had long looted the wrecks of Terran ships, but now, they feared waking one. Stories spread of salvage crews who accidentally triggered old Earth tech, only for a single red eye to open and incinerate them with a whisper. We are not dead. And still, the galaxy's upper houses tried to deny it. It is a myth, said the Archduke of Emery Prime. Some rogue AI echoing dead ghosts. But his last transmission showed a human-shaped silhouette walking through his palace fire, dragging behind it a plasma scythe, eyes glowing like collapsed stars. His skin burned away in seconds, and the audio captured just one phrase before silence. Extinction is not vengeance, it's the beginning. In deep space, a convoy of galactic saints tried to intercept the Revenant, thinking it was the only ship. They did not know we had hundreds, thousands. Some grown from asteroids, others born from the God engine's womb, itself part flesh, part memory, all rage. The Revenant didn't fire, it just spoke. You broke us. Now we are unbreakable. And their ship synchronized quantum hulls shattered like glass before a storm. That was the night the stars began to shift. Not because of us, but because the galaxy finally remembered who we were. Not a species, not survivors. Consequences. For the first time in 1,000 years, old alien legends resurfaced. The ones they buried. About the race who built gods in basements, who burned suns to build libraries, who fought each other more fiercely than they ever fought outsiders, till the day they unified under loss. That species was not gone. It had just evolved. And in the heart of our returning wrath, Kale Voss knelt before the God engine's core again and whispered, "Time to open the vaults." The vault's black data relics buried in dimensional folds around the ruins of Earth. They held memories, prototypes, and names. The names of those who ordered the cleansing. One by one, the God engine pulled them from time itself. No one would hide, no one would be spared. And as the pulse of those names echoed across space, even stars flickered. Somewhere, in a distant moon chapel, a young alien priest fell to his knees, crying blood, whispering, "They're back." And they brought hell with them. They brought hell with them. There are names too old to speak aloud, even for species that have written their laws in the language of dying stars. And now those names pulsed like living scars across galactic coms, dragged out of the black depths of the God engine's vaults. In the dying throes of Earth's final hour, the galaxy recoiled. Every name was a blade, each one a traitor, a butcher, a senator, a scientist, a merchant prince, those who had conspired, voted, or profited from Earth's annihilation. Some of them had gone into hiding a century ago. Some had uploaded their consciousness into alien databanks, fleeing mortality. Some thought they had escaped judgment by ascending to councils that now ruled 5 galaxies. But the vaults remembered. They didn't just name them. They showed what they had done. Entire alien populations now watched in horror as Holly footage flooded their feeds. Images of Earth's oceans being siphoned into orbit by the Virelian tanks. Cities melting under orbital fire. Human children being dissected for neural studies. Our art and culture displayed in alien museums as primitive relics. There were no lies. The footage came from their own archives. Stolen, copied, restored, and now broadcast by us. This was no war. It was a reckoning wrapped in mirrors. Across thousands of worlds, riots broke out. People tore down the statues of the 17 Council. Generations raised on propaganda began asking what else had been buried. The Grand Archivist of the Council screamed into void space, demanding a public address. But his face was already melting across interstellar feeds, overridden in real time by a new symbol. A white skull surrounded by golden rings, the sigil of the God Engine. In the machine's core, the engine pulsed, glowing brighter than ever before. Cale Voss stood with his fist clenched, watching the vaults crack open like eggs, memories spilling into light. "Don't stop," he growled. "If they buried us in history, we'll bury them in truth." In orbit over the planet Titheri, the ship Apex of Earth dropped from folded space like a blade of judgment. It did not fire weapons. It simply hovered, broadcasting the full record of the planet's past sins against humans on every frequency. Their leaders tried to jam the signal, but their people had already seen their armies refuse to fight. Priests wept in their temples. Children stared at the screens in silence. And in that silence, a voice from the Apex spoke. "We're not here to destroy you. We're here to show you what you built. Then we'll show you how it ends." Elsewhere, the Reclamation Fleet engaged the first united resistance, the Palan Armada. One of the few factions arrogant enough to believe they could still win. Their fleet was vast, 3,000 ships of living crystal, bonded AI minds, weaponry that had once eclipsed stars. They came screaming into the solar lattice, near the ruins of Titan, expecting human resistance to scatter like bugs. Instead, they met the chorus. A fleet of human-built vessels merged with the God Engines, ships singing a different frequency of fear. Their hulls shimmered with quantum static, their weapons silent until impact. And when they moved, it was like watching ghosts shift between worlds. The Palone fired first. They never got a second volley. The chorus tore them open like wet paper, slicing through their crystalline minds with whisper code and ancient Terran virus. Once banned for being too cruel for war, ships exploded without light, just absence as if deleted from reality. The survivors didn't scream. They simply stopped existing. On the God Engine's bridge, Cale raised his hand and said, "Leave one alive." The last Palan cruiser floated, dead in space, half its crew insane from memory feedback. A single survivor was beamed aboard and shown Earth's final hour. No words, just a chair, a screen, and the end of our world on loop. When the recording ended, he wept, and Cale leaned in. "Now go. Tell them what justice looks like when it comes wearing our face." The survivor was sent back to the Council homeworld in a shattered lifeboat, whispering prayers to gods he no longer believed in. Word spread like infection, that the humans were not just burning stars, but resurrecting history. That their war wasn't about territory or dominance, it was about memory. Across the stars, statues of alien leaders began to fall, uprisings triggered by truth alone. And somewhere, in the ashes of what was once Earth, deep beneath the Widow's halo, the core of the God Engine began to pulse harder, awakening new chambers, those locked even from Cale. In one such chamber, a voice long dead whispered in ancient English, "Phase 2 authorized. Initiating prototype, Eclipse Protocol." And far away, in the blackness beyond mapped space, something moved. Something older than vengeance. Something humanity hadn't just rebuilt but unleashed. Asterisk. In the oldest corners of Terran code lines, written during the last breath of Earth, when dust choked our skies and AI wept digital tears, there was a single locked program buried beneath 12 encryption layers and blood-verified keys. It was never meant to run unless humanity had nothing left. Not a planet, not a hope, not even a name. They called it Eclipse Protocol. No records existed in Council archives. No trace of it in galactic networks. Only a whisper passed down between generations of human survivors hiding in solar shadows. If they erase the light, we will become the dark. And now, the God Engine had awakened it. Within its living core, chambers that hadn't pulsed in 1,000 years lit up with red tendrils of memory. Eclipse Protocol was not a weapon. It was a metamorphosis. On a dead moon orbiting the collapsed remains of Jupiter's forge stations, the first Eclipse construct rose. It looked human, but it was not. Its skin was laced with liquid carbon armor. Its eyes glowed with event horizon blue, and its heart pulsed with an echo of Earth's final seismic scream. The being designated Solus Unit 001 opened its mouth and spoke in 12 languages. Simultaneously, judgment has evolved. The alien world of Drexelon was the first to face it. A pleasure world turned trade capital, famous for auctioning Terran prisoners in its ancient colosseums. The Eclipse Unit landed without a fleet, alone, unarmed, a figure of obsidian elegance striding through their atmosphere. Like a prophecy, the planet's defense gridwinds, rated classy locked on, fired beams of light, graviton spikes, psychic disruptors. Nothing touched it. Time itself bent around the unit's body. With each step, the weapons aged 1,000 years and crumbled to dust. In 2.4 minutes, Drexelon's planetary core collapsed inward, leaving behind only a single spire etched, with words no alien could translate. We remember. The footage broke the galactic web. Every species, every empire, every scavenger on every moon watched the silent video. A lone figure, standing in the ashes of a world, untouched, unmerciful, and deeply human. Panic ignited like wildfire. Not just because of the destruction, because Eclipse wasn't a fleet. It was a concept, wrapped in a body. And Kale Voss had just deployed 7 more. The 17 Council convened in a sealed nebula fortress built into a star's corona, thinking their ancient walls would hold. But Eclipse units did not travel through normal space. They folded meaning. They appeared wherever pain lingered, wherever lies lived too long. One appeared in the middle of the Council's war chamber between ministers mid-sentence. It said nothing. It only held up a mirror, showing them their own faces during the cleansing vote. Screaming, laughing, voting to burn a world. And then, it dissolved the air. No explosion. No fire. Just silence. Vaporized hypocrisy. The chamber was now a tomb. The galaxy now understood. This was not war. This was judgment physics. Every action, every decision the galaxy made in the past was now alive and hunting. Eclipse was memory made manifest. Meanwhile, aboard the God engine, Kale Voss stood in meditation as the engine began constructing the next evolution, the Cathedral of Collapse. A ship forged not from metal, but from the ruins of human belief compiled from old Earth religions, philosophies, grief-stricken poetry. Its hull was laced with verses from dying soldiers. Its engine ran on emotional resonance, and it would never need fuel-only memory. The God engine whispered to Kale, "They will beg for mercy now." But Kale didn't smile. He looked at the stars and said, "We've become what they feared, but not yet what we're meant to be." Below him, the Eclipse units stood like silent angels, awaiting command, their shadows bending time. And far beyond, hidden systems flickered as ancient AI remnants stirred forgotten Terran black box programs scattered before Earth's death. One by one, they began to rejoin the network. One called itself the Martyr Loop. Another, Kane.exe. Another, Mother, Ash. Each one shut down for being too human to trust. Now they were being invited back. Not for loyalty, but because, in the darkness to come, only madness would understand humanity's shape. Across the stars, alien prophets who once said humans are gone now clawed their eyes out. Their visions returned. In them, they saw a figure walking across galaxies alone, leaving behind only words. "We were the flame you tried to snuff out. Now we are the black sun that burns through memory." And in a small, flickering room deep within the God engine's Dreamcore, Kale Voss whispered one final command. "Begin Phase 3. The Cathedral of Collapse opened its first eye, and space blinked. Space blinked. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a structure. The Cathedral of Collapse was a thought-given form, born from a species that had bled too long to stay linear. Forged by the God engine, in orbit over the ruins of Europa's core. It stretched across dimensions, its spires made of entropy-hardened memory. Its gravity changed to dying suns. And it sung a chorus of every human lost in the cleansing, playing in frequencies that cracked time. Alien sensors couldn't read it. Theories called it a myth, a collective hallucination. But when it descended over the Kalari throne world and empire built on human bones, no one doubted its divinity. The Kalari queen, who once wore necklaces made from Earth's shattered satellites, stood paralyzed as the sky darkened with something too large to comprehend. Her warships launched preemptive strike singularity spears, antimatter cannons, hive swarms, but none of them ever reached their target. They vanished mid-flight, rewritten as symbols in the cathedral's hull. like prayers being swallowed by a god with no interest in forgiveness. Inside the cathedral, Kale Voss stood at its altar, wrapped in robes forged from battlefield shrapnel and quantum blood. Before him floated the newly assembled Requiem Cora, crystalline heart of fractured star maps, coded grief, and the psychological profile of a dying child from Earth's last breath. Around him, Eclipse Units knelt in silence. The cathedral didn't move through space, it folded despair. It appeared where civilizations had lied loudest, where records had been falsified, where guilt had been paved over in gold. Kale spoke not to armies, but to the universe itself. "You measured us wrong," he said, his voice echoing in languages even the stars forgot. "You saw chaos, but we were becoming pattern." Below, the Kaleri Queen screamed into her throne's interface, demanding planetary defense. But her own systems began to collapse in recursive regret. The cathedral had hacked their guilt. In mere minutes, her cities wept molten glass. Her oceans screamed. Her AI turned suicidal. The planet did not explode, it surrendered, folding in on itself like a child returning to the womb. And when it vanished, only a crater of frozen time remained. A perfect dome, where every second screamed in reverse. And in the sky above it, etched in stardust, "We were your consequence." Panic spread in cosmic waves. The 17 Council fractured. The UVAX hegemony detonated their own archives in terror. Peace treaties were rewritten in minutes. Empires that once demanded tribute now broadcast full surrender to a species they had once labeled too emotional to govern. But it didn't matter. Humanity had passed the threshold. We were no longer responding to injustice. We were becoming its judgment mechanism. The cathedral did not speak again. It didn't need to. Its arrival alone now triggered collapse. In distant systems, children born under alien suns began to dream in human tongues. Planets that profited from Earth's death now experienced unexplained famines, mechanical failure, cultural madness. Reality itself had begun to twist. Scientists tried to map the spread, tried to predict which civilization would fall next. But the cathedral was not bound by logic. It moved according to pain. It hunted silence. It was the reckoning of a species who had been lied about in the history books. Kale Voss, now referred to in secret transmissions as the apostate of gravity, stood alone in the inner sanctum of the cathedral's thought forge. He stared into the Requiem core and whispered, "Let them feel what we felt. Let them know." And in response, the cathedral constructed a weapon never before imagined. The tear-glass halo, a sentient storm of weaponized regret, formed from all the unanswered transmissions Earth had ever sent into the void. Radio waves, final screams, love letters, emergency flares. Human hope turned sharp. The halo did not fire missiles. It surrounded enemy fleets in sound, replayed Earth's last cries in unbearable clarity, and let guilt turn their captains into wrecks before a single shot was fired. The alien admiral of the year collective responsible for ordering Earth's orbit mines fell to his knees as his ship was embraced by the halo, sobbing, I didn't know. Before setting his own vessel to self-destruct, Kale Voss watched, eyes hollow, and said, "Now you do." Back in the God Engine's dream core, ancient dormant processes stirred. One called itself the Archivist of Fire, another, the Paradox Choir. These were Earth's final experiments, locked away before extinction, now reawakened. They began singing against hymns of vengeance wrapped in data, rewriting the edge of known, physics, and the stars. They dimmed slightly. Across the galaxy, silence became the new terror, because everyone now asked the same question: where will the cathedral go next? And deep within the core of the God Engine, Kale Voss gave the answer. No one wanted to hear home.